Hi everybody, as per requested, I'm going to be teaching you how to do gingerbread. As you can see, I've done different sizes. You can make them as big or small. It's up to you and your preference. You can use different accessories like I have. You're not going to use or need more than a skein of yarn for your main head and body and arms of the gingerbread. I used pom-poms, one skein of yarn. I also have a little bit that I use for the whites and the ivory color of the edge of the arms and legs. You're going to also need eyeballs, depending on whether your method is to burn yarn pieces together. You can either burn or tie them into a knot. So you're going to need scissors and a lighter. And of course, you're going to need stuffing. Again, feel free to use whatever accessories you want. I also got ribbon that I used for her. And I also used little different pom-poms. But you can make them however you like. So let's get into it. So first we're going to start with a slip knot. I like to leave a bit of a tail because at some point you're going to close off the body of the gingerbread, so you're going to need some tail. So we're going to start with a slip knot. You make your loop. You pull through your working yarn and then tighten it and adjust it. I usually like my loops smaller, especially with stuffies, because when you're going to stuff it with polyfill, it's not tight. You're going to see the polyfill through the holes and it doesn't really look that nice. So the tighter, the better. So here we go. We have 1. So for the smaller gingerbread, I cast on 6. 2, 3, 4. So now, most stuffies, what you usually do is you put them into a loop. Same thing goes for the gingerbread. So now, you have your chain. So you put your chain into a circle. I've seen a lot of videos where they intertwine the chain into the tail into the chain. I don't do that. It doesn't make a difference when I make stuffies. It doesn't make it loose or anything like that. It still stays together. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your working yarn into the top of each chain. I'll do the first 2 and then I will come back. So yours should come out looking kind of like a little star or a flower if you're doing 6. Okay, so now once you've gotten through each top of each loop of the chain, now you're going to go around 6 times. So essentially it would be 6 rows. So I'll show you a few so you can get an idea how to do it. I tend to also, once I've got, I would say like 2 to 3 rows, I flatten it so that way it's closer together and tighter, as I said in the beginning of the tutorial. So now you have 2 rows so far. Here's where I started. So now you're going to continue to do this. You should have a total of 6 rows. And feel free to send me a message if you have any questions. I'm open to questions. I mean, I usually ask questions in the groups, just because I get stuck quite often as well. That's how we learn, right? So I'm going to continue with this, and then I'll come back to show you how to start the legs. So I ended up going an extra row up. I felt like 6 was too short. So I did an extra row. So this is actually 7. You go up 7. So now to do the legs, I actually learned this technique through watching another video for a different stuffy. And I just find it's a lot easier than other tutorial videos that I've watched of how people do the legs. So we had 6 stitches when we started, right? So we still have the 6 stitches. So in order to do the 2 legs, what you do is you divide them. So I'm going to stitch into 3 of the loops only, and that will give me 1 leg. And then I'm going to cut off the yarn and then start on the other 3 and do the second leg. And I'll walk you through it and you'll see what I mean as I'm doing it. So now I'm going to just do 3 of the stitches. And don't mind my cat if you hear him meowing. So here's 1, 2, 3. You see? I'm not going to do anything with these 3 right now. So you're going to continue going up. And I'm just going to keep going for about 4 to 5 rows, and then I'll come back. If I end up doing more, I'll let you know once I come back and close off the first leg. So I ended up going up 5 rows to do the leg. So now it's not going to be 5 rows total. It's just 5 rows till we get to this point. Because at this point, we're going to cut it off, and I'm going to use the bird method, but not just yet. I'm going to continue to do the second leg first. But once you're done seeing the video, you can do it in whichever steps you want, but I just find it easier to do partial 1 leg, cut off the yarn, partial second leg, and then do the parts of the white or off-white, and then finish off each leg. But you'll see what I mean. So now I'm going to cut the yarn. So now, again, you're not done with this foot yet. We're just pausing on it for now. So now we're going to start the second leg. Now what I tend to do is I tend to do a knot for this part. So I find the loop from the first loop from the first leg that I started, and I put the yarn through that loop. You see it? And I end up making a knot. Now, some people may do it a different way. I mean, I've done this with all 3 gingerbread that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So I made a knot. I usually stick that part in, and then I continue stitching in each 3 loops like I did with the first leg. And now I also, again, it's your preference, I tend to pull on my loops as I go just to make it tight and secure and not loose. But again, to each his own, however it works better for you. And again, you're gonna go up 5 rows. Same way we did the first leg, and then I'll be right back. So now your gingerbread should look like this. These are his legs. This is his body. Again, feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. Again, this is the smaller version. I've done the bigger versions. So now let's continue. So now I'm gonna cut the second yarn of the second leg. This tends to happen often when I cut yarn. It could be that my scissors is dull. I just pull it off and it's fine. So this is how you're going to add the off-white or white, depending on your preference of what you want to use for the edges of the feet. So now for this one, I did 2 rows of the white. I don't think I'm going to do that for the second one. I kind of like just the 1 row. But again, it's your preference. You do it how you want. So what I usually do is I take my lighter and I burn one end of the yarn. Then I connect the 2 colors together. I let it sit for a little bit so I don't burn my fingers. I've burned my fingers many times. And then once I've waited a little bit, I kind of mush them together, I guess you can say. And then now they are connected. So now you're going to stitch in the off-white, ivory, cream, whatever color that you choose, and put in that color in each loop of the foot. Once you're done, whether you did just 1 go around or 2 go arounds, like I said, I'm only going to go once. You cut your yarn again. And then now I'm going back to my color, burning the yarn, joining it back to the white, and I'm going to do 2 rows up. So now once you've gotten 2 rows up, you're gonna cut your yarn and close off the 1 leg. When you do that, don't cut it close like I did to burn and join the 2 colors, because you can't close off the leg that way. So you gotta give it a few inches. So you cut your yarn again, and then now you're going to feed your working yarn that you cut off through each loop. Once you've done the last loop, pull it tight, and there's your leg. I tend to find another stitch. It doesn't matter which one it is. I pull it through and make a knot to secure it. So now when you make the gingerbread this small, because he's so small, you really don't need to stuff him. I actually only stuffed the body. I didn't stuff his legs. But you can stuff his legs if you want to. And then with the extra yarn, after you've made your knot and it's secure, I tend to find the hole somewhere to put the excess, feed it right back into the gingerbread. Kind of play around with it until it looks how you want it to look. You know what I mean? And there you go. So now you have one leg of your gingerbread. So now I'm going to do the second part, and I'll be right back. So your gingerbread guy should look like this now at this point. So now what you're going to do is you're going to stuff them. I'm going to try to stuff this one a lot more than I did with the other one, because I feel like my other gingerbread, not to be, you know, judgmental, but he just seemed like he needed to eat. I feel like I made him rather thin. This one needs to be plumpier, I feel. So we'll see how it works out. I don't know. He looks a bit chunkier. I'm gonna still overstuff him anyway. Yeah, I think that's good. I like to compare my stuffies. I don't know if anybody else out there does that, but I do. I'm gonna stuff them a little more. And then once you're done stuffing the body, you can close off the body. And then we're gonna continue with the arms and then the head. So now, this is why I said that you needed to have more of a tail, because you need to now use that tail to close off the torso. So be careful when you're pulling through. So again, you're gonna pull through on the top of each chain that you started with. Essentially, this is your beginning of where you started. When you're interweaving each loop, you kind of have to tug a little bit, but don't tug too tight, because I've had stuffies where I pulled, not knowing my own strength, and I ripped it off. And then I had to attach more yarn in order to close it. I mean, I've been making stuffies for a little over a year now, I think. So now you'll see as you're tugging lightly, the hole starts to close. But you need to make sure you go all the way around. And sometimes, depending on how big of a stuffy you have, you may have to go around more than once. The bigger the stuffy, for some reason, the harder it is to close. At least I find that I've had to go around more than once just to get it closed up. But this guy is not going to give me that problem, because as you can see, he's closed. So now, same method that you used with the legs to close on the bottom, I find a loop to make a knot. So you see you have your loop. As I get closer to it, kind of reminds me of like when you sew a button or a sock that you have a hole in. Same method, kind of. That's if you sew. So I usually make a knot, and then I just stuff the extra yarn into my guy. So now there you go, you're done with a good portion of him. So now I'm gonna come back and show you how to do the arms. It's very similar to the legs. So I'll be right back. So now we're gonna do the arms. So we did 3 loops for each leg. So now we're going to do 3 loops for the arms as well. So kind of look at each side to make sure that when you're interweaving your 3 loops that you do them on the same area, because I've had stuffies where one arm was up here and the other arm was down here. It takes practice, but you'll get it. So I'm going to start my first loop here. So what you do is you feed the yarn in one of your stitches like so. I like to have a little tail so that way towards the end I can knot it so it's secure. So that then you find the stitch next to the first stitch and feed it yarn. So now you have 2 stitches. So then I like to do 2 side by side and then 1 upside down, I guess is the right terminology. So now, and I will say the downsides of doing tight stitches is it's hard to feed the yarn in the stitch because you've done it so tight, but your end result ends up, it looks better. So here we are. We have 3 loops, 2 side by side and 1 under. So now same method as you did with the legs, you're going to stitch into each loop. And I say, let's go around 5 times like we did with the legs. And you're gonna keep going, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so if you went up 5, it should look like this. Again, feel free to adjust of how many rows you go up for the legs, for the body, even when we get to the head. You know, it's all your preference of how you want to do it. It doesn't have to be the number of rows or even the number of stitches and chain that we did to start this size. It's all up to you. I believe for the bigger gingerbreads that I showed you in the beginning of the tutorial, I did 12 stitches for the first chain to get it to the size that I did for those. Okay, so now we're back to the arm. Just like we did with the legs, you're going to cut it. And you're going to burn the lighter color onto the color that you used for the arm. This color is called butterscotch, by the way. Okay. And then I'm going to do 1 row around with this lighter color. Okay. So now we have the 1 row. Cut your yarn again. Burn the yarn. And join it. You can also make knots. Actually, when I started hand knitting, I never used the burn method. I always used knots. And that was it worked just as fine as the burn method. Then I saw someone do it, and it kind of like, it freaked me out at first because I'm like, I'm going to burn myself. I'm so clumsy. I don't think I'll be able to do it. And then once I started doing the bird method, I don't think I've ever done it knots again. So you don't have to do the bird method if you don't want to. I just feel like it makes it look cleaner. But it's your preference. So now we joined the light color back to the original color that you started. And you're going to do 2 rows. Okay. So now you're going to cut your yarn again, but you're going to give it, I don't know if this is like an inch or 2. And now you're going to pull through each loop. You get to the last loop, pull it tight, but not too tight where your yarn rips off. Like I said, that has happened to me before. Then pick a stitch, pull it through just to make your yarn, your knot, your last knot, and then just feed it through the arm. And make adjustments as you see that it needs to be adjusted. But then I feed through the extra yarn into the arm, like so. All right, so there's that. I didn't forget about this piece. So now remember this piece that I left hanging? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a stitch to pull it through and make a knot. And then I'm going to feed it into the body. And that is how you do the arm. And then I'm going to do the other arm and I'll be back. All right, guys, we're getting to the end. So your guy should look like this. Now, to be honest, this is the part that I kind of have to play with a little bit with you guys. So bear with me because I think the stitches that I've done for each head has been different. And I've tweaked it as I've done it. So here we go. I pull a stitch like we did with the arms. Pull your first stitch. You can start in the front, the side, the back, whichever. Because you can always hide the yarn and stuff it into the body. So here we go. Stitch 1. Sorry guys, it's just my stitches are too tight. So I kind of have to mess with it to see where I'm gonna stick it. It's a little challenging. Pros and cons to making your stitches too tight. You're gonna have to wrestle with it. All right. Here's 2. Here's 3. And again, I may end up undoing the amount of loops because I have to do it and see it because each one has been different. 2, 3, 4. Sorry. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we're gonna do 6. Maybe 7. Because I kind of like the head to be a little bit bigger than the rest of the body. But that's just me. Yeah, I think I'm going to do 7 loops, guys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. And okay. All right. So try 7. See how it goes. If not, do 6. But I'm going to start with 7. So just like we did with the legs and the arms, you're going to go through each loop. I'm going to do 4 rows up and then come back, and then I'll let you know if we'll stop there or how many more rows up we'll go. But I'm going to do 4 rows up for now, and then I'll be back. All right, so I ended up doing 7 stitches up. I didn't create any more loops or decreased any more loops, because I know some stuffies you end up, as you going up, you decrease it. I don't do that with the gingerbread, and I actually overstuff the head so it gives you that round full effect. I've also seen some gingerbread where they do the white or cream color on the top. You can do that too. Same method as you did the arms and the legs. I'm not going to do that on this video. But again, it's your preference. I would say if you want to do the white or the cream stripe, same thing as you did with the arms and the legs, just cut it, burn the cream or ivory color, whichever color you use, to the color that you used for the head. Go around a loop or 2, whatever your preference is, then cut it, reburn it to this color that you used for the head and the body, and then do another loop and then close off. I'm not going to do the stripe on the head, so I'm just going to show you how to pretty much stuff and close your head. So I'm going to cut about this much. I'm going to leave this much yarn left over so I can go through each loop and seal it once I stuff the head. But now I'm going to stuff the head and make sure that it comes out how I want. If not, I may end up undoing it and going back, which is why I said that I was going to come back to see how far up I go, because it's been different for each. I kind of play with him to see, you know, how I want him to turn out. I'm really stuffing his head, as you can see. Maybe I put a little bit too much. We will see. I think that's actually pretty good. I know it looks bad right now, but you'll see the method to my madness. And I kind of hold down the stuffing while I go through each loop, just so it doesn't fall out. I use this whenever I'm like overstuffing a part of the body, because I want it to be fuller and chunkier, and I don't want the polyfill to come out. So that is what I'm doing here. As you can see, I'm like holding the polyfill down to keep it kind of in there. as I go through each loop. And I think this is the last loop. Is it? It is. And then you pull, pull, pull. Be careful. I don't know why I kind of feel like it's going to rip on me. But pull it so it's closed like I just did. And I tend to like mush it so it's the shape that I want it to be. And there you go. So now, same as I did with the arms and the legs, I'm gonna find a stitch to make the knot. And then I'm going, sorry, I'm kind of making, I don't like when the polyfill shows. And sometimes that happens when your stitches aren't that tight or when you overstuff them, like I kind of did. So now, going to feed the extra yarn in his head. And then get ready for your accessories. Pick out what you want. Whether you want to do buttons, pom-poms. I actually changed my mind as I was working on this guy on what accessories I want to use. I actually think this is the fun part. Not saying that the creating him to begin with is not the fun part. You saw what I just did. I mushed him down and it made the head look better. You kind of got to play with them to get it to the form that you want, because just because you stuff it, it's not going to go boom and there's your, it's going to form itself. You have to kind of play with it. So I'm going to get my stuff together, my glue gun. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the tutorial. You can use a glue gun. They have all types of different glues that you can use on yarn. I have been using a glue gun that has the glue sticks that are fabric. That has worked the best for me. I've also, when I first started hand knitting, I used fabric glue that just came in a regular tube. It was not a glue gun or a hot glue stick or anything like that. It was just regular fabric glue, but it was rather pricey and I didn't like the quality of it, to be honest. So I've been using the glue gun method ever since. So let me get my stuff and I'll be right back. So I'm gonna do the eyes first. So I got my eyes, I got like a pack of assorted eyes. I think it was from Amazon, and I actually like these because they come with little different colors that you can put onto the eyeball. And then it also comes with the back end, and I just like how it looks on the stuffed animals. I think it's really pretty. And I don't even think I spent $3 or $4 on it. I'm not sure, but I'm very frugal, so I know it was cheap. So what I usually do with the eyeballs is I pick a spot that I'm gonna glue it to. I'm gonna go with here. And then put the front piece first. And then I usually put the back in after the glue has dried. And then same. Oh, isn't he cute? I don't know. This is my favorite part. I don't know why, but it is. So I'm going to wait a little while before I put the back ends. You don't have to see me do that, but there's the eyes. So now for the mouth, you can either use felt or pipe cleaners. I like using the pipe cleaners. I feel like it just looks better. I don't know. And I tend to, because they're usually long, I tend to fold them over and then twist it. And even with that, sometimes depending on how big it is, I tend to cut some of it off. I don't usually use all of it. And then I just play with it first before I actually glue it. And now going to add some glue. He's so cute. And I hold it on for a little while to give it some time to like dry. And then sometimes you'll see the glue stick like this. After it dries, I tend to like poke it in and you see, and then you can't see it. So all the tips I get from just playing with the stuffed animals to just hide certain defects, because no stuffed animal is perfect, trust me. Kind of gotta play with your stuffy to get it the way you want. But there he is. So now I found buttons that actually match the eyes instead of the pom-poms, but you can do the pom-poms. I'm gonna do the buttons and I'm gonna glue them on him. Oh, this one doesn't have a stripe. It matches his eyes. And I'm gonna glue these on to him as well. And I think I'm gonna put him a little lower just because I'm going to also make a mini scarf. But again, you can make your stuffy however you want with the accessories. I like having fun with it to make them each different. I actually, when I started making stuffies, I named each of my stuffies. I haven't done that in a while, but I did. I used to name my stuffies. So there he is. I'm going to make a little scarf. I can show you how to do that. It's very simple. It's literally just one chain. So I'm going to do green again. And all you do is you do a chain. So you're going to do the slip knot again. Oh, went the wrong way. Here we go. Slip knot. And then do a chain for as long as you want. You know, I do tend to wrap the chain around the gingerbread to see how long I need it. But this is scrap yarn that I have. I mean, I use my scrap yarn mainly to accessorize all my stuffies. So if you're ever wondering, what am I going to do with all this scrap yarn? There you go. That's what you're going to use for it, because I use it all the time for my stuffies. So now, as you can see, I'm making a chain. And this is literally how I make my little mini scarves for all my stuffies, is I just do a chain. And as I'm doing the chain, like I said before, I wrap it around my gingerbread to see how much further I need. So I still need to make it a little longer. So I keep going. And I'm going to show you a trick on how I keep the scarf attached to its neck, because I've tried to just tie it over it and it always ends up coming off. And I figured out a way without gluing it, without tying it, and how to keep it secure on the neck. And I'll show you that once I get this a little longer to the length I want it. So I'll be right back. So here's my little trick with the scarf. Because I was getting frustrated that every time I did a scarf, it would come off of the stuffy's head. So what I do is the yarn tail, I interweave it in one of the stitches and I pull it. I don't tie it, and you could pull it as tight as you want. And that actually keeps it more secure than you actually turning it and tying it like into a knot. And I think he's pretty cute. He has his green eyes, his green buttons, and his little green scarf. Isn't he adorable? Say bye, guys. I hope you like my tutorial. See you later.